Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Grow the Good New Zealand. I am really grateful and excited today. I think today's episode is going to be really valuable and special because it's a topic that I think is not often spoken about, or I believe needs more awareness, not only in the tourism space, but I think in general. And we have a really awesome person with us today. I'm really grateful for your time, Tim. And how we got to know about Tim was just basically I had a workmate, shout out to Andrew, who I was asking around, what do you want to sort of hear or see from me or see in the tourism space when I embark on this platform? And he said, does anyone talk about accessibility in tourism? And I was like, yeah, that's true. And so I'm really glad to have connected with you, Tim. And his work's been featured in some news articles and things like that. And I just really wish that your work continues to grow. And I'm really excited for everyone to know about what you do. So without further ado, I'll pass on to Tim. And yeah, we'll get to hear a little bit about your story and your awesome mahi. Thank you so much, Tim.
No worries. Nice to be here.
Thank you. Tim started his own company, and for those of you who remember, I'm really inspired by people who start their own thing and grow their own thing. And Tim started Smart Access. So I'll pass on over to Tim to explain a little bit about what he does.
Oh, yeah. So I started Smart Access in 2020 after I ran for local government and kind of saw what processes they had to prioritise infrastructure upgrades and also what data they provided for disabled people so they could plan a safe journey before leaving the house. Because a lot of disabled people get anxiety when going to new places if they don't know what barriers they'll come up against. And so I decided to collect this data and sell those services to different councils, tertiary institutes, and hospitals. And so we collect a really wide range of data. We did a lot of community consultation to see all the different variables that affect people's travel, which is a lot, considering those with like low vision, blind people, pretty much everything above ground, they need to know where it is so that it doesn't become a barrier. Now we're we have data in 10 different cities across Australia and New Zealand.
That's amazing.
Yeah, doing all of Wellington City and a big chunk of Hobart and a few other cities around the place. So it's going really well. And so now we're starting to grow our kind of customer facing business with our application, the Smart Access app, which is available on Android, iOS, and web app, and starting to get the message out that this data exists and that it can help you plan a safe journey.
Wow, that's so amazing, Tim. It's I feel like when we were talking the first time before the work that you were doing, what was sort of being done in that space. Yeah.
I didn't see any. So there was kind of static maps that some companies would create that would have where the toilets and where accessible parking was, and usually in a city centre in a small area. And I just didn't see enough variety in the environmental features that were collected. But to have it on a static map, you can't have very many variables or it gets too cluttered. But with kind of a dynamic like application that you can move around the environment and turn on and off different features, it means that you can add a lot more variables in there and people can just choose to see the ones that are relevant to them at any one stage.
That's amazing. The essence of why you started it, a little bit about your background, and I guess why you're so passionate about that space. What sort of led to being able to recognize those needs for the disabled community?
Yeah, so I had a snowboarding accident about 14 years ago, which led me to be a wheelchair user. And then after that, I did my Masters of Science in Psychology, and I developed a educational video game. So I started getting more into app development, and so I kind of had those skills, and I've always been interested in kind of using the scientific method and having like data to inform decision making. I think that's really important than kind of going on a whim or relying on anecdotes from the community. Instead of waiting for someone to complain about something, I wanted to, see how we can kind of make objective decision making and not just upgrade the nice neighborhoods, but see if there's like an objective need in a poorer neighborhood that should be prioritized. But usually it's kind of people in nicer neighborhoods that have more time to complain about things. Things get fixed more
Yeah.
in those neighborhoods when it's not like it's not an objective way of prioritizing upgrades. My background in science and technology and my frustration as a wheelchair user all kind of led to me developing
That's
this
so
product.
amazing. Wow. So the next question is, why do you think in the work that you've done so far and the space that you're building more awareness and you're truly making a difference, what are the challenges that you're noticing or the gaps that you're working to fill now? What I'll do is I'll link below details about your company and that app. That's so cool.
I guess the biggest challenges are like attitudinal within councils to think that this is valuable. So, some of the kind of younger, newer people are a bit quicker without being ageist, they're a bit quicker to recognise the benefits.
So the next question is, what are the challenges that you've faced in your whole journey setting up the business of Smart Access?
Yeah, so I think the biggest challenge has been like breaking down attitudinal barriers from within the councils and governments. They've kind of been used to doing things one way for a long time, and trying to convince them that they maybe have not been doing it as well as they could have this whole time, and this data would really improve their processes is kind of hard to convince some of the people who have been in the organization for a long time, but some of the kind of newer people on the scene who are often a bit younger, they are a bit quicker to see the utility of this and realize there's better ways of doing things. So I think just trying to convince them, I think they're realizing there's a need for it more and more. I think that's kind of a cultural shift that's already been happening, but then trying to convince them of what tools are going to be most effective in that fight to improve accessibility is kind of the biggest thing.
So I'm curious, what do you think are things like, say, someone like me as an individual in the community, what are things that we could do to sort of contribute to raising awareness in this space? As an extra question.
I think probably, if you know anyone who works at council, just kind of spreading the word is always good. I think like just people knowing that these services are out there and how they're used, because I don't know any other people who are doing exactly what I'm doing, and I've only been around for a few years. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. So, council staff and councillors, so just spreading the word and, voting when you vote for people who care about
that's right.
this sort of thing. So it's political, and it's just kind of getting the word out there, really, that it exists and what you can do.
Right, so true. Yes, because the voting, that's in the works. What would you say the challenges in your journey in accessibility?
Yeah, so I guess all of my challenges getting around just being independent and trying to access all the opportunities that other people have has been, has kind of led me to what I was doing now, because I was doing a Master of Science and these other things, and I never really thought of getting really in the accessibility space or working on disability issues kind of first and foremost. So it was always kind of education and, all these other things I was studying before I had my accident. But then after just kind of facing so many barriers myself and, realizing there was heaps of opportunities that I missed out on, I guess that where I realised, this isn't a solved problem, and there's lots of things I can do to help improve that. So yeah, that was just kind of a slow realisation.
So awesome, because there's a difference between like someone who's experiencing something and then someone who experiences something and uses those experiences to make a positive difference, like take the steps. And so I think that's really cool. That's,
Yeah,
yeah, always inspiring to hear. But yeah, as you said, it's quite a journey, and I always think anything to do with changing attitudes or shifting perspectives is, yeah, it takes a, I think, a community to, yeah, in
yeah,
time. But yeah.
yeah. It takes a lot of time and a lot of conversations between
Yeah.
different people, just slowly breaking down those ideas.
I love that. Oh, next question leads into how accessibility, or why you think accessibility is important in tourism. Until I met you, and the conversations and the lived experience that you shared with me from my family members and cousins' experience with his wheelchair use, it made me realize that, oh yeah, like when I go to tourist places, how many of those places don't have ramps and like are just stairs, or there's no way to experience that tourism part for people using wheelchairs, or not even just wheelchairs, like the other things you mentioned, like sight or hearing, like things like that. So yeah, really curious your perspective in
Yeah,
the tourism space.
yeah. I think there's kind of two parts to it. One is just the infrastructure needed to get around the city is going to make a big impact of whether or not someone goes somewhere new. So, like I said earlier, a lot of disabled people have a lot of anxiety about going to new places, and that's often even within their own city, to a new suburb or a new cafe. So,
Yeah,
a lot of people just don't leave the house or don't go out very often, or just go to the same place over and over because they know it's accessible. So, even
yeah,
for like domestic tourism or within your own city, um, that would be improved hugely by having this data on infrastructure, so
yeah,
people know where the barriers are before leaving the house. And so, I'm much more likely to go to a different city and participate in
yeah,
tourism activities if I'm confident that I can get around when I get there, or I have a plan of, even if the whole city's not accessible, I have a plan of where the pedestrian routes are that are accessible. So I,
yeah,
can plan around that. So yeah, I think that's one part of it. Is just like I'm way more likely to go to a city and spend my money there and try and be a tourist, even if it's not going on whale rides or something like that. Going and
yeah,
eating at a cafe or something if I know I can get around. And then the second part, I think, is kind of like those specialist activities, bungee jumping or gondola rides or
oh,
something
yeah,
are accessible too. Then I'd do even more tourism. I wouldn't just go to a city. I'd actually spend more money doing all those fun activities, and that's where Making Tracks, my friend Jezza Williams' organisation, comes in, which helps to provide information on which vendors are accessible. So I think those two things are really powerful together.
true, because it, yeah, reminded me again that we don't think about the other things that come into those challenges, like you said, anxiety, and then maybe going to the same places because we're not sure what to expect. And it makes me realize that in the tourism industry, if we could improve this, it's almost like we're missing a whole cohort of excluding that tourism
Mm.
experience for a whole group of people.
24% of the population are disabled.
Wow.
And so that is a huge chunk of money that could come in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's disabled people, older people, young families. They all
Yeah.
depend on accessibility, and that's just a huge chunk of the market that is being missed out on.
A shout out to Making Tracks.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
It's
Tracks
really awesome.
at the end. Yeah,
Wow. That leads into the next question, which is, oh, this is a good one. I guess we touched on it a little bit before. What you think the key is to increasing accessibility awareness? And I guess you mentioned before just spreading the word. If I had to think of something, definitely see for the youth, social media, things
mm.
like that. The
Yeah,
way, yeah. What do you
yeah.
think? Yeah.
Yeah, spreading the word, marketing is really important. Just spreading the word and conversations amongst people, and just having it often things will be listed off of things that are important to get more people into tourism, and it will be kind of uh, marginalized communities like women and minorities and things, but often disabled people are left off that list. I think that leaving that on the list would be a good start.
Yeah.
And doing marketing on social media with young people who are often, the drivers of change for the future. I think at an organisation level and a wider societal level, it's really important to promote disability leadership and actually have disabled people on boards rather than in like a
Wow.
tokenistic community consultation or advisor position that often doesn't have any real power. So I think
Wow.
that's really important. New Zealand tourism and different organisations should probably have disabled people on their boards that are actually guiding these decisions early on, and trying to, it's hard to kind of know from the outside when different things have been missed, but when things are first brought up in conversation and brainstorming's going on, that's a really good time for someone to be like, hey, have you thought about this angle, or how can we include the whole population here? And often it's just not thought about.
It's such a powerful piece of advice, having that representation, the leadership decision making level.
Mm.
Wow. Oh, thanks. I'm dropping gems here. You touched on your journey a little bit earlier, but the mindset that you feel is valuable when trying to make a change, and what are the things that have helped you push through challenges when trying to reduce these barriers and have kept you resilient, I guess, in this
Mm.
pursuit?
Yeah,
What?
I think just having like a growth mindset over a fixed
Yeah.
mindset is really important. Really stuck with me early on in my psychology training is just you can kind of notice it in the world with people who they're not thriving as often because they feel like they've learnt their skills, this is their position in life and this is their fate, or this is kind of what's meant for them. But I think just having the attitude that you can always do better, and that you yourself can make an impact to make things better. Having that mindset just is what's needed to make change in the world, really. And the more people that kind of realize that they can positively impact the world, and they can improve themselves and improve the world, is going to make it a better place, I guess.
Wow, I love that. It makes me think about, so your growth mindset contributed to you making this possible. And so if you did that, how many other people out there have talents and skills, ideas, and we're a huge part of either moving forward or holding ourselves back. And it's a
Mm.
journey with that growth mindset, but how many amazing ideas are actually out there.
Yeah.
If it actually happens. Yeah. So
Yeah, some invention or something's like 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration.
oh, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
lots of people have
Yeah.
cool ideas, but yeah, like having that follow through and belief in yourself that you can achieve that is, yeah, that's what's needed, really.
It's such a special message to share with everyone, and also the youth as well, because like you said, they're the future, yeah, of our generation. Actually leads really nicely into our last question. What is your advice to fellow aspiring entrepreneurs? Because I know that it's a challenging space to be in, like having an idea and making it happen. There's a lot of that in between. Yeah.
A hard one. Just you just got to keep going. I guess it's really hard. My first venture, education these days, it's still kind of up and running, but it's not as successful as my second venture. And um, I guess the most important thing is usually having something that you really care about, because that's what will keep the drive going even in the dark days when things aren't going well. Like you have this kind of overriding sense of wanting to do better, or really being passionate about the project. I think that's key. And then having to kind of think about things from a first principles basis, and like what actually is key to improving this industry or something. So that will lead to a kind of innovative good ideas, and then just kind of having that growth mindset and that resolve and persistence to do better is what's needed. But I struggle with all these things as well, and it's just about reminding yourself, and no one's perfect, but you just kind of have to keep going and trying to make a better life for yourself, I guess, and
I
other
love
people.
that. Oh, thank you so much, Tim. It's been just so inspiring listening to your message, and especially that representation and the leadership and how people can do this for themselves, whatever their situation is. For those of us who sort of want to follow where your business is going, where can we find you? And yeah, that apps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you go to our website,
Yeah.
smartaccess.enterprises,
Okay. Cool.
enterprises with two S's rather than the Z at the end.
Oh yeah.
And also on, if you go to Instagram, smart underscore access underscore LTD for limited,
Okay.
and go there and check us out on our website. We have links to the app on iOS, Android, and web app.
That's amazing. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone, for those who's listening. And yeah, if we want to follow or reach out to Tim, yeah, you've heard where the links are. And I really wish the best for your business to continue breaking those barriers and having those really important conversations. 'Cause, yeah, you really make a difference and inspires me. Thank you so much, Tim.
No worries. Thanks, Alpha.
Okay, bye everyone. So, if you'd like some more positive in our lives, join me in this podcast journey. Subscribe, and I'm always open to new topics and suggestions. Let's keep it moving and grow more of the good things. Thank you so much.